April 14th, 1942. Brooklyn Navy Yard, Dry Dock Number 3. An enlisted mechanic stands alone under flickering work lights, holding a welding torch over a warship that hasn't yet touched the sea. What he is about to do violates Navy regulations, defies naval engineering doctrine, and could sink the ship on its very first voyage. If he fails, he will be court-martialed. If he succeeds, he will change naval warfare forever. This is the story of the idea the Navy outlawed and the ship that proved it right. Frank Genovese was not an engineer. He did not attend Annapolis. He held no degree, no academic title, no authority. What he had was 25 years of listening. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1917 and spent his entire career maintaining steam turbines, reduction gears, and propeller shafts. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, ships of every size and purpose. While officers read reports, Genovese listened to machinery. He heard cavitation before it appeared on gauges. He felt inefficiencies through vibrations others ignored. He learned when propellers were fighting the water instead of cutting through it. By the late 1930s, he was convinced of something radical. American warships were slow, not because of engines, not because of hulls, but because of bad design no one questioned. Specifically, the propeller shaft struts. Naval architecture placed these heavy supports directly ahead of the propellers. The logic was structural stability. The consequence was turbulence, chaotic water flow that robbed the propellers of efficiency. Every ship had it. Every navy accepted it. Genovese did not. Using nothing but notebooks, a slide rule, and late-night testing, he calculated that the Navy was losing 10 to 15% of potential speed to this flaw. He submitted proposals. They were rejected. A machinist mate questioning Bureau of Ships doctrine was unthinkable. So Genovese waited. And then the war came. By early 1942, the Battle of the Atlantic was going badly. German U-boats were sinking Allied merchant ships faster than they could be replaced. Entire convoys vanished. Britain was being slowly strangled. British destroyer escorts were meant to be the solution. Over 500 were ordered. They were fast, cheap, and numerous on paper. In reality, they had a fatal weakness. German Type 7 submarines could make 17 knots on the surface. American destroyer escorts were rated at 23 knots, but only under ideal conditions. In heavy Atlantic seas, loaded with fuel and ammunition, most escorts struggled to exceed 19 knots. That margin was too small. A submarine detected early could simply run, then dive. Again and again, U-boats escaped. Admiral Ernest King saw the reports piling up. The math was brutal. If escorts could reliably make 26 knots, submarines would not escape. The Bureau of Ships had an answer. Impossible. More speed required bigger engines. Bigger engines meant bigger hulls. Bigger hulls meant delays America could not afford. The specifications were correct. Nothing could be done. But in Dry Dock Number 3, Frank Genovese believed otherwise. On the night of April 14, 1942, with supervisors absent and inspectors days away, he acted. He cut away the standard shaft struts. Every cut was irreversible. He repositioned them, reshaped them, aligned them to feed smooth water into the propellers instead of chaos. If the ship failed, he would go to prison. If it sank, he would carry that weight forever. By dawn, the USS Buckley was committed to his idea. When the day shift arrived, the reaction was immediate alarm. The Buckley did not match specifications. The design was unauthorized.
Supervisor Robert Henderson understood the risk instantly. Restoring the standard design would delay the ship 6 weeks. 6 weeks meant convoys without protection. Henderson examined Genovese's calculations. They were crude, they were handwritten, they were correct. Henderson made a decision that violated everything the Navy stood for. He signed off the work. If it failed, Genovese would face the consequences alone. Sea trials began on June 1, 1942. At 80% power, 19.2 knots, normal. At 90% power, 21.4 knots, slightly better. At full power, 24.8 knots. Observers thought the instruments were wrong. They weren't. Run after run confirmed it. The Buckley was nearly 2 knots faster than any ship of her class. The Bureau of Ships observer demanded explanations. None existed. In July, the Buckley entered combat. 9 days later, it detected a surfaced U-boat at long range. The submarine ran, but this time the escort did not lag behind. At 25 knots, the Buckley closed at 3 times the expected rate. The submarine dove too late. For the next 3 months, the Buckley achieved 5 confirmed kills, an extraordinary record. By October, Admiral King demanded answers. The truth emerged. Charges were prepared, court-martials scheduled. Then King intervened. Cancel everything. Study the ship. The investigation was devastating to established doctrine. Genovese's modification reduced turbulence by 73%. Propeller efficiency increased 11%. Fuel consumption dropped. Mechanical stress decreased. The conclusion was unavoidable. The Bureau of Ships had been wrong for 20 years. Admiral King ordered fleet-wide implementation. Over 200 ships were modified. Submarine losses spiked in early 1943. German intelligence noticed, but never understood why. By mid-1943, the Battle of the Atlantic was effectively won. But the deeper change was cultural. For the first time, the Navy formally acknowledged that enlisted personnel possessed critical engineering insight. Suggestion programs were created. Thousands of improvements followed. Genovese became a warrant officer, then a consultant, then a legend few were allowed to know. After the war, the Navy retrofitted nearly its entire fleet. Fuel savings alone reached hundreds of millions of gallons. Speed advantages shaped Cold War naval balance. Today, Genovese's principles are standard naval architecture. But the real legacy is not technical, it is cultural. Innovation does not belong to credentials, it belongs to those closest to the problem. Frank Genovese broke rules and saved lives. He proved that sometimes the most dangerous thing is following orders that are wrong. One mechanic changed the speed of a fleet, and with it, the course of a war.